all my gear in here, and also a tripod. And in front of my body, I have a carrying case for my camera, and then usually a lens in the back. And this is kind of my typical backpacking area kind of thing. So I thought I'd begin with a few photographs that I made before I came here to give you an idea of the kind of things that I find most attractive. I'm a landscape photographer and also animal photographer. I do people sometimes, but not very much, unless my wife twists my arm and says, you need to make photos. So this is the kind of thing that I'm particularly interested in. I also try to use whatever material I can find. One of the things I want to talk about today is I know that you were talking about making more photographs yourself, so I'm going to throw some tips and as I try to think. One of the things I usually do as a landscape photographer is ask the question of what's in my foreground. And so in this particular case, this funny piece of wood was in the front. I thought it looked odd and strange, so I put that near the bottom, focused about here, and this sort of plants your mind to have an object in the front as the sun is coming up in the background. This particular photograph, obviously, I'm wanting to catch the reflection here, but what makes this one work, I think, is that the sun was coming at a strong angle and the trees in behind were already in the shade, so it really made a pop, you know. So when I made that particular photograph, really what I was trying to do is ask myself the question, what kind of design did I have? And so I had this idea of kind of an arrow kind of a notion here. So I clipped off some trees here so that I have that general frame. So some of you weren't part of our hike yesterday, but we went out to a nature reserve. And since it was all about trees, I knew I wanted to have at least one shot that showed kind of the normal tree. And so this was one of the first things that he showed us. And so as someone who kind of always has in mind one of my shots, I want it to document where I've been and what I think is the main thing there. So this was kind of my document photo. This tells you, hopefully, this is kind of what the main thing was that was there. The rest of the photos are not really documenting like this one does. So what I want to do most of the time when I'm making photographs in a trip like this is I want to think about details. What is something about this that I will remember and will inspire my memory to this time? And so I remember seeing this kind of near a log, and so I used a low f-stop so that I could blur out the background. I wanted to have more than this, so I had something else here just to make your eye move this direction and really focused in on that particular thing. One of the things I want to do is I love textures. I love to have a feel of things. And this particular tree, this was on top of that mountain where we went to the lodge where the Duke or whatever went hunting and he left his wife or whatever. Anyway, that was up in that area. Those veins really jumped out at me. I thought I want that. Okay, here's your Trinity. So I put this one up here because one very common thing that photographers try to do is think about threes, 5s, and 7s. Sets of odd numbers usually look more pleasing to the eye. Now there's more than 3 trees here, there's one here, but these 3 just kind of jumped out at me. Then when I saw these mushrooms, I saw the 3, you can actually see 4 here, but I was thinking in terms of 3s there. There's something about the human aesthetic that odd numbers look most of the time more beautiful. There's exceptions, but so that's what I was thinking in that particular instance. This one just jumped out at me. It came, I saw the branch, I saw the tree. I thought if I position my body, I can have kind of almost like a modern, minimalist, modern art look to it. So that's how that came out. On this one, I wanted to show all of the different things going on, so I focused here and blurred everything out. So a shallow depth of field. And the same here, you've already seen this picture, it looked like I put it up twice, but these are all those kinds of things. This is the only photograph I made yesterday that I tried some HDR. It stands for high dynamic range. Usually when I'm hiking, I have my tripod with me, and in order to do HDR, you take 3 photographs and then they're combined together. Anybody heard of HDR, high dynamic range? No? Okay. One person. All right, so there's a special technique that you can do in which you set your camera so that it takes 3, 5, or 7 photos, really quick. And then you combine these 3 different images, and it's called high dynamic range because the darkest things are lighter and the lightest things aren't totally whited out most of the time. Here I'm taking a picture of the sun, for instance, and this would be totally whited out if it was in one particular image. Anyway, I just put that up for an illustration. It's probably more than I should have done. Okay, I wanted to show these 2 photographs because when I was going through the forest yesterday, I knew the light was coming through, and I wanted to turn my camera, face the light, to have the iconic light coming through the tree. I mean, it's a very common, always looks kind of cool, I think. And then I thought to myself, this is my foreground here. This is showing lots of room. What if I also had something for the eye to see in the foreground? So I just moved my body over a little bit and caught a few branches, and this is almost the same picture. I mean, this is like, these leaves are right here. But this attracts my eye here, and then you have this. It's a different effect. This is probably more visually pleasing as a full photograph. This tells a story that you're in a tall place. So there's 2 stories being told here, depending on how I set up what's in the frame. The foreground or no foreground, and just the forest floor, or the nature floor. This morning when you said you take pictures of people, you document churches and things.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought to myself I would put this in. So this was our person telling us about the bark yesterday. And when I came up to make the photo, I had a picture of him, and I think it looks okay. He looks pretty good. She doesn't look so great. She's scratching her eye. But, you know, it's an okay photo. And then I thought, I want something different. I want a different angle. So I just put my camera up and aimed it down. And then I waited till more people were actually looking at him. She was looking away for a while. Finally, she turned around and looked at him, and then I had what I wanted. You have the road going back in the distance. He's got a nice pose. I just put this up here just to say, just a slight change of camera angle can make a difference in the photograph. So just think about different places to put your camera. This photograph, I was constructing visually a photograph of flowers in the field, that last spot. And I knew that I wanted to have some parts of the photograph, your eye go right to them because they're sharp, but I wanted others out of focus. So I focused in on this particular flower. You see this is kind of blurred. This one's not bad. There's actually a bug on this one if you look really carefully. But I was focusing on this. Then I had the back out of focus, which gives you a kind of an image. Your eye is now directing here to the middle. And then I thought I had an opportunity to put in the foreground this particular flower. That makes your eye then have a balance here, and these up here to balance, so you're kind of focused in here. Then I saw that if I slightly move my frame farther away, I would have an interesting picture. This is almost the same picture, except I'm adding in a couple up here. Now that, in some ways, it breaks the rules, because it feels to some people like it's too much. But to me, I don't know, it seems right. It feels right to me. So I don't know, which one do you like best? This one or this one? Which one do you like? You like this side? How many people like this one better? Raise your hand. Most of you. Oh, I'm the weird one. How about this one over here? You and I. Just 3 of us. Yeah. I'm not sure why I like that one better. This one's more symmetrical for sure. I could see this hanging in my house. This one just seems like it's a little off balance. It's kind of moving. It's dynamic. I don't know. To each his own.
Feeling that the meadow goes further than the right image.
Yeah, yeah.
Left, it's more in a frame.
Yes, it's framed. Yes, that's
then
nice.
you have the perspective of the meadow behind.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think the eye is more directed with this. There's a clear direction.
Yes.
Here you don't know where to look.
Yes, this is a little cluttered. It's it's a little wild stuff going on. Yeah.
Wild nature art.
Yeah. So, just preferences. Now, this is just looking straight down on some flowers, and instead of, I mean, it wasn't this dark that day, but I chose to make a photograph that was darker because I thought it would really pop. It would feel more like an art piece if I had this stronger colors. Actually, this is not my favorite one. This is my favorite one. I like this one because I had these here in the middle, even have a little bug in there. You've got then this up here to give it some dimension, and then this one is just kind of laying off. It's a little bit, I like photographs that are a little bit off. They have a little bit of balance to them. I could see putting these three together in a nice little, you know, like in my house or something. This is the one with this up in the corner. If you don't like that, we could clip that one out. But then you would have a nice little sequence that would go well together, I think. This is probably my biggest failure, not biggest. This is the one I was trying to do yesterday that didn't really develop. I wanted to focus in on this little tree and make the background disappear and it just kind of stand out. But the tree was too big for me to get close enough to just focus in on it. And so it works a little bit, but not nearly what I wanted it to. It doesn't stand away from the rest of the background. I did try to blur this a little bit, but I'm not happy with it. But I decided to put it up here so I show you my failures too. There's more failures in this one, but.
Would you recommend to blur it in the post-production?
Yes, yeah. I did a little blurring in post-production, but I didn't do a lot because I wanted to show you that this didn't turn out as well as I wanted it to. But even if you're going to blur it a lot in post-production, then you have to worry about getting all of these things in here. It's so much work, and these leaves, I don't think it's worth it unless you really love the photograph. Okay, this is obviously now moving away from yesterday. This is a photograph I made in Idaho some time ago. I thought I would talk, maybe some of you know this idea of the rule of thirds. It's just a kind of common thing that photographers use to ask the question of where items are in your frame. This, I think, is an aesthetically pleasing picture. I could have, however, decided just to put the tree in the middle. To me, this doesn't feel very good, and to most people it doesn't. Putting your object in the middle of your camera, you might be able to focus well on it, but it usually just doesn't have the same feel. Maybe for you that second one feels better, but this one feels better here. And notice that when I divide this frame up into thirds, like that, that's roughly the thirds. See how it fits there so nicely? It's right on that tree. And I didn't plan that other than just sort of visually kind of knowing where things are in the screen. Had I put the tray over here further, it would have said something different. This just kind of seems symmetrical. Notice also, and I wasn't thinking about this at the time, but notice also that this horizon is pretty close to this bottom third as well. So you've got this third and this third that are pretty close to the same. Then you've got lots of stuff going on in the middle. Typically, good photographs are made, especially landscape photographs, by placing things on these grids, staying away from the middle, and putting on one of these grids here. So here's an example then of me putting things on grids. This is obviously the Milky Way. I wanted to go out and see if I could make a photograph of the Milky Way reflecting in a lake. When I got out there, there were some people fishing and they had a fire. So I walked about a half a mile away, or maybe a quarter mile away, made this photograph. This added extra dimension. So I've got a third, and this guy here is on this third to make it sit in terms of a landscape photograph. Or this one. This one's not quite a third. This is a little off. But it's in this general frame here. And then I've got my horizon pretty close to the middle. That's not a bad place to put it either, depending on the kind of photograph. And here's all my foreground stuff, so your eye is grounded here. And then, of course, I just get lucky with the start. You didn't plan the It was starting to, lightning was going, and so I got my camera and I opened up my shutter about a second or two, and then I just kept opening it up. And so lots of lightning came down. I probably took 250 shots. About 10 of them had lightning in it. And this one, I just got lucky that it hit there. There's another one that came down about right here that one of my colleagues has taken and put it in a banner. It looks really nice. But it doesn't look nice on the landscape. It only looks nice in this one banner, one sliver. Or here's another third. Just third. In this particular situation, it's just an ugly old lake near where I live. But because of the way the sun was coming in, it caught those clouds and allowed me to make that photo. Okay, this one this is actually not a very high quality photograph. You can see here there's lots of blurring, but I wanted to show you this photograph because sometimes as a photographer, I'm asking myself the question, does this tell a story? So this is actually not the photograph I took. The next picture is the photograph I took. But feel the difference between this one and this one. This little road gives you the impression that there's a journey. This adds meaning to the photo. All of a sudden you can imagine yourself like driving here and like checking this out. This one is just, it's okay, it's not bad, but all of a sudden we add some meaning to the picture just by adding in something in it. And roads are great meaning-making kinds of things in photographs. Lanes, like that one picture we had a little while ago of our ranger showing the bark and the road going into the background. That tells a story. It tells a story that it's going somewhere. So you might think about this kind of issue too when you're thinking about photographs. All right, here is maybe 2 or 3 photographs in which I'm working on silhouettes. So I'm asking myself, if I face the light either at dawn or at sunset, what could be in the foreground that can go black, and then I can catch the sky. So this is just some thistles by a lake, and I'm focusing in here and I'm letting the back blur. Or this particular, I saw these, we call them hoary hairs. I don't know what you call them here, but this is the ice from the fog. And I put my f-stop on my highest f22, aimed it toward the sun to catch the rays coming through the ice there. Notice too that I don't have it right in the middle of my frame. That sun isn't right here. It's off to the side. It's kind of leaning this way.
The star effect, was it afterwards?
No, that was in
just
camera.
By aperture?
Yes, yeah. If you take your camera and you put it to the highest f-stop, you'll usually get a star if you go at the sun. Okay. Now I put this one in here just because I suspect many of you know that you get this milky water effect by opening up your camera lens a little bit longer. This is maybe 1/15 of a second, 1/5 of a second, something like that. Just long enough. It's actually whited out. It's probably too long. But it has that feel. So much about photography is about time and light. In this particular instance, I'm illustrating time. Time is slowed down to make things milkier in this particular photograph. Whereas this one, this is about a 10-second opening. So I opened up my frame, and all this water that was moving here, you can kind of see it here, some movement. Because it was open a 1/10 of a second or so, everything just smoothed out like glass. And this is the reflection of the trees coming in. There's a mountain in the background. That's opening up my lens, or my lens for about 10 seconds. Something to think about. I threw this one in here just because I like the texture. I told you before I like texture photos. Yeah. Sometimes I use that as wallpaper on my computer. I don't know why I put that in here. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Oh, I know why I put this one in here. I like snakes. I like to take pictures of snakes. This guy was right at sunset, obviously. The sun is coming off to the side. And so in post-production, I even darkened this a little bit more. I put a little contrast on it so that he would really light up and look even more silver than he was at the time. This is the Snake River, about a half an hour from where I live. I put this in just to remind you that some of the great photographs you can make are getting reflections of water of some type. So, oh, thank you. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a big river. You know, when we were walking through the nature park yesterday, there were lots of puddles and little ponds that you can use for reflections as well. I put this one in here because I saw that you were going to put that one Ansel Adams photo in there, and I said, hey, I've got one kind of like that. What makes it similar is these reflections here and the branches in the water. Are you familiar with what this is? This is a test to find out if you're colorblind. So, can you see all the numbers here? I can only see the numbers in this one, and this one. I'm colorblind. In other words, everything I've been showing you so far with colors, you probably see differently than I do, because I don't see them the same way. I put this up here because to illustrate how we all look through the world through our own eyes, our own lenses. And so this particular photograph looks different to you than it does to me because I'm red-green colorblind. This is actually a photograph in the Sawtooth Mountains of Idaho, and there was a forest fire in the distance, and this is the sun coming up, so the sun coming through the smoke made this particular image. Or this is Salisbury Cathedral in England. I just put it in there because there's lots of yellows and blues.
The picture before with the light, yeah, this one. How long did you stay that you could make it?
How long was my lens open? Like a second or 2 seconds?
No, how many hours?
You know, we weren't in a hurry. It was far enough away. Unfortunately, in Idaho, we have lots of fires, and so it's more of a nuisance to your lung than it is danger, at least where we were at. Yeah. See, it's kind of scary. This is about 2 hours south of me. Idaho has great forests, but also meadows and deserts and sagebrush. Back in the mountains again. This is, I'm trying to show the reflection. Here I'm putting this not quite a third of the way up, but pretty close. But I wanted to get this stuff in the foreground to give me that presence here, to make my eyes move up. And the last photograph. Here I am with my backpack in the mountains of Idaho. So, just some tips for you on how you might think about making photographs. I'd love to take any questions or comments or thoughts.
Vielen Dank auf jeden Fall.